Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So this is the fourth in the series of our beginner's Sanskrit, and we've been looking at Infant Reader by R.S. Bhatia in Polgat, and also a text by Aganis on Introduction to Sanskrit. So if we look, let's look at Aganis and see the next lesson that he has for us. So this lesson, lesson 3, let's see. Yeah, lesson 3. Okay, so in this lesson, he gives a summary in the beginning. The remaining letters in Roman script, right? So it's assumed that everybody knows Devanagari, but also we can use two different scripts. We can use Devanagari. We can also use Roman script with diacritics to represent Sanskrit. So here he's giving the alphabet bit by bit. We should all know the Devanagari alphabet. If we don't know the Devanagari alphabet, go to my YouTube channel. There's some videos there about learning Devanagari. And if you don't know, you can always contact me and we can help you learn Devanagari script. Okay, so the first 10 consonants in Devanagari script. So he's just starting out teaching Devanagari script. That should be very easy. So then we're also going to learn grammar. We're going to learn a little bit about the plural. Up until now, we've learned singular. We've learned nouns, how to make nouns singular, and then dual. How to give an ending to a noun to make it dual in the case of two things, a pair of things. And now we're going to learn more than two, plural. So that in Sanskrit is called ekavachanam, singular, dvivachanam, dual, and bahuvachanam, plural. So we're going to learn plural today. Okay, so and the grammar terms which describe a verb, we're going to learn a little bit about that. We're going to learn a little bit about accent, and then we're going to learn some more verbs. We learned some simple verbs, and we could make some simple sentences just with verbs. So we learned how to conjugate the verbs, how to add the different endings to the verbs, simple verbs, in the present tense. So the alphabet, the remaining alphabet. So we have previously, the previous consonants are sometimes referred to as stops. Okay, so there are a list of 25 consonants in the Sanskrit alphabet. Ka ka ga ga na, cha cha ja ja nya, ka da da na, ta da 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 na, pa pa ba ba ma. These 25, we already covered those in the previous lesson, and these are called stops. They're also called sparsha. Right. So because they stop the flow of air. So when we pronounce those letters, when we pronounce those aksharas or letters, right, syllables, right, what happens is that the tongue takes up different positions, but it stops the flow of air that comes out of the mouth, and by stopping the flow of air in different ways, right, the different consonants are produced. Okay, so they're formed by complete contact. So for instance, if I say pa, my lips come together, and then I let the air out like that. So there's complete contact is made. Ta, the tongue touches the back of the teeth and makes and goes in complete contact, then pulls back and lets the air come out. So that makes that sound ta. So these things which are these letters that are kaka gagana up to papa baba ma, these 25 stops in Sanskrit they're called sprishta. Sprishta means to touch. So that's complete contact, complete touching, right? Now the remaining letters of consonants allow more flow of the air than these ones which are completely cutting off the air. Right, so there are 4 consonants formed with slight contact, not complete contact, slight contact. And these are called ishat sprishta. Ishat sprishta means slight contact. These are called semivowels in English. We call them semivowels. They are consonants. But as you will see, they act sometimes sort of like vowels. What's the difference between a vowel and a consonant? A vowel can be extended. It can be extended, right? So if I can go e, oo, as long as I like. Whereas I can't say the letter T, the letter K, the letter G, any consonant, I can't extend it, that sound. So that's the difference between vowels and consonants. Okay, so now this semivowel is somewhere between a vowel and a consonant. It's a consonant, but it acts like a vowel, or it in fact comes out of the vowels, right? So those are ya, ra, la, and va, right? So ya comes from the vowel e, I, right? Ra comes from the vowel ri, which is a vowel, a vocalic sound, ri, that R with a dot under it in Roman script. La comes from ri, that L with a dot under it in Roman script, right? That's also a vowel, right? Va comes from oo, right? Okay, so except for A, all the other primary vowels. So we go to the primary vowels in Sanskrit: e, u, ri, and we can say ri. Possibly some people don't say long ri, but anyway, those are the 9 or 10, whatever you want to say, primary vowels, right? They're not mixed vowels. The mixed vowels, remember, are called the diphthongs. Diphthong means two sounds coming together, like A, I, O, L. Those are diphthongs. But the primary vowels are a, I, U, ri, and the long forms. Okay, so from those, except for from all those other four, right? I, U, ri, right? Come these: ya, ra, la, and va. They are consonants which come out of those vowels, right? Is everybody following me? Okay, so they're called semivowels. Now, they are therefore called, whereas the regular consonants are called sprishta, these are called ishat sprishta, slight contact. They are considered to be between vowels and consonants, and so they're also called in between. Even in English, we call them semivowels. So we could call them semivowels, semiconsonants. They're in between the vowels and the consonants, right? They're consonants, but they act like vowels, right? For instance, the word swami. In English, when we write the word swami, some people write it SV or SWAMI, and some people write it SV or WAMY. No difference in pronunciation with a Y on the end of a word in English or an I on the end of the word. Swami, right? Okay, so they're also called in between. So as we say in English, semivowels, right? So they're also called antasta. The word sta comes from the verb tishtati, which we have pratishta for installing a deity to make it stand right on the altar, right? So sta means to stay or to stand, to stay or to stand. So antasta means to stand between. Antasta means antasta. So they're called antasta or ishat sprishta. Ya, ra, la, and va. These are semivowels. Okay. So now what have we learned? We've learned in the alphabet, we've learned vowels, right? Which are divided up into primary vowels and diphthongs, right? So the primary vowels are I, u, ri, and maybe ri, if you believe in the, you'll never see it. It's only theoretical, the long ri, right? You'll never see it, right? They're the primary 9 or 10. Then you have another 4, A, I, O, L, right? These are the diphthongs. So they're the vowels. Then you have the consonants. In the consonants, you start with these 5 families. Kakagagana, cha-cha-cha-cha-na, ta-ta-ta-ta-na, ta-ta-ta-ta-na, pa-pa-pa-pa-ma. Right? So you have these 5 families. These are the complete contact, sprishtas, right? Now we have the slightly contacted ones. The semivowels come after that. Ya, ra, la, va, right? That's in the Sanskrit alphabet. They come right afterwards. Okay, so now we've understood those. After that, we have what's called sibilants. Okay, in English, we call them sibilants. You can think of them as S sounds. There are 3 S's in Sanskrit. There's an S with an acute accent, right? This one down here, right? Which is a palatal S. There's an S with a dot underneath it. All the letters in Sanskrit with a dot underneath it. These are cerebral or retroflex, right? What do I mean? I'll explain again about this. And then there's sa, right? Without any accents on it, like that. That is the dental, right? So what do I mean by palatal, cerebral, and dental? Okay, palatal again, with the tongue flat, with the air bouncing off the roof of the mouth, which is called the palate, right? If we say sh, 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 that is the palatal S. Sh, as in Keshava, right? And then the S with the dot under it, the cerebral one, the tongue, the tip of the tongue flips back and points to the top of the roof of the mouth, the palate, right? To the head, points to the head, or it's called murdanya in Sanskrit. In English, we call it retroflex or cerebral. The cerebellum is the head, right? So it points to the cerebrum. Sha, 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 as in shanmukha, right? Right? So we have Shankara, Shanmukha, Shankara, or Keshava, right? That is the palatal S. Then the retroflex or the cerebral S is Shanmukha, Shanmukho, right? Krishna, Ganesha, right? These are those type of S's like that. Actually, Ganesha might be palatal. Let's see. Okay, and then the last S is just a regular S without an H sound. It's not a type of sh. It's just a sa. It's just sa, where the tongue touches the back of the teeth or the velar ridge and just pulls back and then lets out the sa. So we have Shankara, Shanmukha, Saraswati. These are the three S's. Okay, so we have those three S's. So three types of S's. And these are called half contact, ardasprishta. They're also called Ushman or heated, right? Okay, so you don't have to remember all these things, antashta and ishachprishta, sprishta, ardasprishta, Ushman. You don't have to remember these things to know Sanskrit. Just understand that we have different types of consonants. What are the different types of consonants that we just learned? We learned there are stops. Kakagagana up to papababama, 25 of them, right? Then we learned that there are semivowels, yara, lava, right, which are in between vowels and consonants. Then we understood that there are three S sounds, right? Sh, sh, and sa. Okay, that's it. Last letter. Here's the last letter that we come to, the last consonant that we come to, and that is the aspirate. Now, what does aspirate mean? It simply means aspirate is voiced. What do I mean by voiced? Okay, so there's voiced and unvoiced consonants. They're also called in Sanskrit ghosh and aghosh, right? They're also called hard. We can call them soft and hard, right? What happens is that we use more or less vibration of the vocal cords in these different letters, right? So here, what we're using is the aspirate is voiced, so we're using more vibration of the throat, of the vocal cords, and we're using more air. Aspiration means air, right? So more air. Sometimes it's classified as part of the group of the S's, with the S's, but we can think of it separately as the aspirate. It is just a letter which represents more air, right? So ha, 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 ha. You hear the vibration of the vocal cords? It's just letting out air. Ha, ha, ha. If I've run a lot, and I'm out of breath, I'll be ha, 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 ha. So ha is that sound. That is ha. That is a consonant. Okay, so that's the last consonant. So from ka, ka, ga, ga, na, all the way up to ha, these are consonants divided into these 3 or 4 groups, right? We have, first of all, the stops are divided into those 5 groups. The gutturals first, then the palatals, then the cerebrals, then the dentals, and then the labials on the lips, right? And then we have the the semivowels, right? The semivowels, yaralava, the sibilants, right? Sha, sa, and then we have ha, the aspirate. Now we know the whole Sanskrit alphabet. We have not actually talked too much about Anuswara and Visarga. We'll talk about that in some other time. Okay, so here are how these sounds are pronounced. Ya like the Y in yes, Ra like the R in red, L like La like the L in law, V like the V in victory, but closer to W. Now, I will give you an example. Normally, what happens is that when you pronounce a V in Sanskrit, when it's a conjunct consonant, when it comes with some other letter, it can be pronounced more like a W. When it's by itself, for instance, vadami means I say. Vadami. We wouldn't say wadami. We say vadami. Whereas if I say swami, right, because the S and the V come together, it's SVAMI. So SV come together, I can say swami. Some people say swami, some people say swami, a little bit more like closer to a W. So normally we don't pronounce it as a W, like a W in English, unless it's in a conjunct consonant. If it's in a conjunct consonant, then it's optional to pronounce it as either swami or swami. Okay. So that's just a little thing. Now we have how to pronounce these other letters, how to pronounce the sibilants and how to pronounce the aspirate. So how we pronounce the sibilants are, right? So the palatal S, the one with the acute accent on top of it, right? That little dash going from bottom to top, from left to right, upwards, right? That's called an acute accent. And it's like the SH in the word shine. So the other one, right? The S with the dot under it, the cerebral one, right? Like the C in efficient. Similar. Now it's similar. It's similar to the other one. They're both SH sounds. And in fact, in some languages in India, like Tamil, you won't hear Tamil people or even Bengalis make much of a difference between these two, right? But in Sanskrit, it's important to know the difference between these two, okay? These two sounds, right? So then we have the S, which is the dental one, which is like the S in the word sweet, sa. Okay, then we have the aspirate, like the H in hero. Okay, sorry to go into that detail, but we had to go into detail about the alphabet. Now, two additional sounds are Anuswara. Two additional sounds are Anuswara, which is seen as an M, right, in Roman script with a dot under it, or it could be have a dot over it also. It's the same thing. It's called Anuswara. Anuswara means it's a pure nasal sound, right? And Visarga, and then both of them always follow vowels. They cannot be written by themselves without a vowel coming before them. So a vowel always precedes Anuswara or Visarga. Now let's understand what Anuswara and Visarga are. The Anuswara, right, causes the last portion of the vowel before it to be nasal, like the French word bon, right? So the French say good, something's good, so they say bon. So it's very nasalized sound. In fact, it's called a nasal. It's a pure nasal. Now we've come across nasals before in the stops. In the stops, in the other consonants, we have ka, ka, ga, ga, na, na. Na is a nasal. It's a guttural nasal. Then we have cha, cha, ja, ja, nya. Nya is a nasal. It's a palatal nasal. Then we have ta, ta, da, da, na. Na is a nasal, like in Ganesha or in Krishna, right? So then we have ta, ta, da, da, na, right? So we have a dental nasal, right? That is na. Then we have pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. Ma is a labial on the lips nasal, right? So we have these 5 N's that we know of already, 5 nasals that we already know, right? So what are they again? From working from the gutturals all the way down to the labials, they are na, like the ng in king, nya, right, like in onion, na, nya, ra, right, is the cerebral one, na, the dental one, and ma, the labial one, right? So na, nya, ra, na, ma. These are the 5 nasals that we already know. Here's a 6th nasal. This one is a pure nasal, anushwara, and in certain way, we'll find out later on, but it can be changed. It can be changed into back and forth between those other 5 as well, depending on where it sits in a word next to another. That's a little bit more too complicated for you right now. But anyway, so it may sound like a nasal of the set. The anushwara changes its sound according to the following sound. So if we see an anushwara in a Devanagari, anushwara is a dot on top. It's a dot on top of a letter. And it represents this M, this nasal sound, M with a dot under it or over it. Right, so it takes its actual sound, right? It sounds like one of those 5, those other 5 that we discussed, according to what sound comes after it. This is a type of sandhi, right? We're going to learn how letters change because of the letters around them within words and also between words in Sanskrit. Okay, so it may sound like a nasal of a set to which the sound following it belongs. So if we see an anushwara, an M with a dot under it or over it, right, or a dot in Devanagari over the letter, the next letter that comes after it to the right, flavors that sound. So we should always look at the next letter before we pronounce that sound, right? So that if we look at the next letter, the next consonant, and we know which family of letters it comes in, whether it's guttural, palatal, cerebral, dental, or labial, right? Then we know how to pronounce the anushwara. Okay, so he said it may sound like the nasal set of the sound which follows it. For instance, we have this discussion a lot of times that sometimes people say narasimha, sometimes people say narasingha, right? So is it simha or singha, right? So this is an anushwara which is being pronounced in 2 different ways. By some people it's pronounced one way and some people it's pronounced another way. Don't worry about it too much, right? It can be pronounced in both those ways. Right, so for example, here he's giving an example. Here's a word, Sankhya. Sankhya means to count. And there's a system of philosophy called Sankhya, which is like modern science, where they count and enumerate everything. It means empirical knowledge, Sankhya. Okay, so Sankhya, the word Sankhya is a word. So it's written with an anushwara here, with an M with a dot under it, right? Is pronounced like Sankhya, like a guttural N. The guttural N is ka ka ga ga nga nga, like the N in the ng in king, king, right? So Sankhya, right? So we can we can say, if we want to pronounce it like an N, we can just say Samkhya. But normally it's pronounced Sankhya. Okay, so that's an example of an anushwara. And the way it's pronounced is flavored by the KH. This is the letter that comes after it. The letter that comes after it is KH. KH is what? Ka. It's the aspirated guttural, right? It's an aspirated guttural. It's a hard aspirated guttural, right? Or an unvoiced aspirated guttural, hard aspirated guttural, right? Ka, right? So therefore, because it's a guttural, because this letter is a guttural that comes after the anushwara, therefore the anushwara will be pronounced like a guttural N. Understand? So in the dictionary, anushwara is found in the same place as the nasal to which it refers. Okay, so now if we're looking up this word in the dictionary, then we don't look, we have to know Sanskrit alphabetical order when we look up words in the dictionary. This is where it becomes more important. So it's important to be able to pronounce this word correctly with Anushwara in it, but it's also important to look it up in a dictionary. So to look it up in a dictionary, we have to look, and we don't necessarily see it where we think we should see it, because in Sanskrit alphabetical order, we usually get the vowels coming first, and then we get Anushwara Visarga, then we get the consonants, right? So in the first line of the consonants, at the end of the first line, we get that guttural nasal. So where is this word going to be? Is it going to come before that, or is it going to come after that? It's going to come after. It's going to come in the same place, even though it's got Anushwara in it. It's going to be found in the dictionary in the place where it would come if it had this this nasal, this guttural nasal in it, right? So that's all he's saying here. Anyway, don't worry too much about looking words up in dictionaries. Nowadays, you just type in the word and it looks it up for you, right, online. But if you have a paper dictionary, an actual hard copy, then you have to know the Sanskrit alphabetical order. So in the dictionary, the Anuswara is found in the same place as the nasal to which it refers. If the Anuswara becomes before a semivowel or a sibilant, remember what are the semivowels? Yara, lava, right? Or a sibilant. What are the sibilants? Right? The S sounds. Sha, sa, right? It can be, it is found in the dictionary before ka, right? So if an Anuswara comes before a semivowel or a sibilant, it's found in the dictionary before ka. Something you can know now, you can forget, don't worry about it. It doesn't really matter. You'll figure it out how to use the dictionary. Don't worry about it too much. Okay, that's about Anushwara. So now Visarga. Visarga is also called in Sanskrit Visarjaniya. It's called Visarga or Visarjaniya, right? It can be, it's an H with a dot under it, but it's actually not an H. It's a separate letter called Visarga, just like the M with the dot under it is a separate letter called Anushwara. Okay, so this letter is an unvoiced, which means it's hard, right? Breathing, an unvoiced breathing that occurs in many contexts instead of S or R. So sometimes we get the letter S or the letter R at the end of a Sanskrit word. The next word changes that S or the R into a Visarga, or sometimes the Visarga changes into an S or an R. You don't know about the Sandhi yet, so don't worry about that too much, right? But he's just saying that Visarga is sometimes turned into S or R, sometimes it's Visarga. In modern India, it is often pronounced at the end of a line. At the end of a line, before a dunda or a double dunda, we learned about Sanskrit, Sanskrit punctuation. There's only really two syllables in punctuation. There's no question mark. Sometimes you'll see people put commas and question marks and semicolons and colons, in Sanskrit text. It's not originally there in Devanagari text. The only thing which we see in Devanagari text is where you take a breath, which is a dunda, a single line to break the text up, because the text can all be put together. Devanagari can all be hung off the top line and all put together, all the words put together without a break. And then all of a sudden there's a break. So when you make a vertical line, it's called a dunda or a stick. That is a break, and that means take a breath. When you see two sticks, it's like take a bigger breath, or it might be the end of the verse. The end of the half verse will be one dunda. The end of the full verse will be double dunda, two sticks. Okay, so when is Visarga pronounced? Otherwise, it's not pronounced at all. But if it comes before a dunda, directly before end of a half verse or end of a verse, or before a dunda in prose text, right? We can think of dundas and double dundas as commas and full stops, commas and periods. So when it comes before that, then it's pronounced. Then the full echo, the Visarga echo, right, is pronounced. So in modern India, it's often pronounced at the end of the line as an echo of a vowel before it. It echoes the vowel before it, right? So slight echo, right? So for example, after an A, it would be a short ha. So if you have a visarga, a visarga, right? Here, after an I, it would be a short I, like that. So here we have some examples. So for instance, when we see a and visarga, it's pronounced as aha. When you see I visarga, you see ihi. When you see u visarga, it's uhu, right? So for instance, so now let's go through all the vowels and see how all the vowels are pronounced with visarga. So short and long primary vowels. Aha, short A. Aha, long A. Ihi, short I. Long I. Ihi. You notice that the echo is also as long as the vowel that comes before visarga. Uhu, short U. Uhu, long U, right? You don't really get re or re before visarga, so we're not going to bother trying to pronounce that. Now we do get, before visarga, we get the diphthongs. The diphthongs again are A, I, O, ow. They are mixed vowels, right? So we get ehe, right? And we get oho, right? Now, how do we pronounce when I or ow, AI or AU come before visarga? We only echo the last part of each one of these diphthongs of I and ow. So I is A and I, ow is A and U, right? So we only the I and the U parts are echoed. So I, he, ow, who is how we pronounce again. I visarga is pronounced I, he. AU visarga is pronounced auhu. You might hear some people might wrongly say, okay, they might say I hi, au how. No, it's not I hi and au how. It's I he and auhu. Okay, so that's how we pronounce it. So once again, all the vowels with visarga. Aha, aha. Ihi, ihi. Uhu, uhu. Ehe, ehe. Ehe, oho, ihi, auhu. Okay, that's how we pronounce visarga. Now, we have some very interesting things which you won't normally come across, but sometimes you do come across them, even in classical Sanskrit, and specifically in Vedic Sanskrit. Jihwa muliya and upadmaniya. So this is an X sound and an F sound in Sanskrit. This is when you get the visarga, which is normally written as an H with a dot under it. If you see H with a horizontal line underneath it, right? That is called jihwa muliya. Jihwa muliya means pronounced at the root of the tongue. So the jihwa muliya is sometimes played in place of the visarga before ka and ka. So ka and ka, right, is the first hard, the hard unaspirated and the hard aspirated guttural sounds, right? When you get visarga before that, it's pronounced like X, ik, or like that, like the ik in German, or the loch in Scottish, Loch Ness, like that. And the upadmaniya, when you see a little chandra bindu, if you see a little brave, what's called a brave or a little U-shaped symbol underneath the H, that is called an upadmaniya. That is when the visarga comes before pa or pa, right? When it comes before those, it's pronounced like an F. So purnamada, like that. So because purnamidam starts with P, and we have a visarga at the end of purnamadaha, right? So it becomes purnamadaf, right? So these letters, used more in Vedic Sanskrit, indicate a subtle difference between the breath before ka and pa, which is like breathing through the throat, or breathing through the lips. When we breathe through the lips, we say fa. When we breathe through the throat, we say ka, right? Ka. So upabaniya and jivamaliya. Okay, so now we have lesson 3. Here comes the grammar. Okay, so we have now learned all the letters in their transliterated form. what is the function of doing that? Of doing what? Rinapati, do you want to unmute and tell me what function of doing what?
So what's the significance of using an Padmaniya and Jupamulia? Why would we do it? I mean, what difference does it make if you were to pronounce it like this or the other way? Is there a difference in understanding? Does it change the meaning of the word if we were to do it differently?
No, it doesn't change the meaning of the word. It's sort of like when I said you can say swami or you can say swami. You know, there's a slight difference in pronunciation between v and w. You hear a lot of times when North Indians specifically try to speak English. If you listen to the English news on an Indian news channel, right? They will use W and V in different ways than we do in native English speakers, right? So you know, it just comes from having Hindi or Sanskrit as a mother tongue. You know, people tend to pronounce things when they see in English, they pronounce it in that way. You know, and that's, you know, we should just be aware that this is a way of pronouncing. Jihwamuli and Upabaniya are ways of pronouncing Sanskrit, which are not always observed in India. So, for instance, with the Vishnu Sahasranama that I gave a transliteration of, sometimes I've marked them and sometimes I haven't marked them. Whether you see it marked or don't see it marked in Devanagari, or there are Devanagari symbols also for Upabaniya and Jihwamuliya. But sometimes they're not used. Mostly we just see the two dots, where Visarga is usually two dots to the right of the letter. And we don't usually see the symbols for Upabaniya and Jihwamuliya. So sometimes, you know, you can still pronounce the Upabaniya. You can pronounce in any classical Sanskrit or any Vedic Sanskrit. Specifically Vedic Sanskrit, where the pronunciation is much more strict, right? You should pronounce the Upabaniya and Jihwamuliya. In classical Sanskrit, some people, just like I said, gave the example Purnamada, Purnamidam, the Shanti mantra, the Shanti Pad from Ishopanishad. So in that, some people say Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, or Purnamada. Even it's not the end of a half verse, so we don't even have to pronounce the Visarga as an echo. It's just Purnamada, Purnamidam. But some people want to pronounce it more with the Upabaniya, so they say Purnamada, the slight F sound comes. So you can do it or you don't have to do it. It's optional in classical Sanskrit. It would be more important to do it in Vedic Sanskrit. So, and it's just a difference in pronunciation, and it has nothing to do with the meaning. It's not going to change the meaning whatsoever. Subtle sounds, correct. Right. So anyway, it's just for completeness, he's explaining this. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to pronounce Jihwamuliya and Upabaniya in all situations. Certainly, if you want to more accurately pronounce a Vedic mantra, you should definitely be able to pronounce the Upabaniya and Jihwamuliya. In classical Sanskrit, it's optional. You can pronounce it or not pronounce it. Nobody's going to blame you if you don't pronounce it. I don't know if anybody who's going to blame you, but you will hear people like the Chalakiri brothers, you know, and other people. You're going to hear them saying Purnamadaf. You're going to hear that F sound. You're going to hear that Jihwamuliya sound, X sound. So, okay, so lesson 3. So we've now learned all the letters in transliteration and their Roman equivalents, right? Their Roman equivalents and other ways of representing some of the letters. Now, you sometimes see these other ways, but we don't care about seeing these other ways because we're not using these ways. We're using the International Association for Sanskrit Transliteration method of transliteration, you know, and so we don't care about these other methods, but sometimes you will see in texts where they transliterate and they translate the S with the acute accent, which is the powerful S, as SH, right? So you might see it written like this, Shanti. It's exactly the same if you see Shanti, right? You might see a ri, a vocalic R, you might see written as RI. So you might see vocalic RK, or you might see RIK. This is not right because anyway, so you might see these things. We don't really care about these different transliteration systems. We use the internationally accepted one. There are two internationally accepted standard ways to transliterate Sanskrit into Roman text. The first one is called IAST, International Association of Sanskrit Transliteration. That's what is used in ISKCON books, BBT books, books that are by people who are scholars, also use this, right, they're only interested in Sanskrit. Now, other Indologists who are not just interested in only Sanskrit, but are interested in other languages like Hindi, like Bengali, like Tamil, like other languages in India, they use a different system, which is slightly different, right? It's called ISO, International Standards Organization. The International Standards Organization is written on this subject, and they have a standard called 15919, 15919. ISO 15919 is the system for transliterating any Indic script, any script of India or Sri Lanka, right, including Sinhalese, right, and Nepal, India, and even it includes Urdu, includes Sinhalese, includes all these other things. You'll be able to transliterate any sound that is in any of those Indic languages with ISO 15919, which includes Sanskrit, which includes Hindi, which includes Bengali, which includes Tamil, etc. So in general, Indologists tend to use the ISO 15919, and people who are only Sanskritists tend to use IAST, like in Prabhupada's books, like that. So, or in the BBT books. Okay, so now we've covered that. And if you don't understand the difference between ISO and 15 and IAST, then we're going to be using only IAST for Sanskrit. So don't worry about it. But if you want to know the difference and then you want to know about it, then we can talk later. But it's not part of Sanskrit lesson. All the sounds can be classified according to the part of the mouth that they come from, and there are actually little sutras, or there are little sutras or little phrases that you can memorize to tell you where the different sounds come from, the different parts of the mouth. In Panini, he akuha visajini nam kanta ichu yashanam talu. These are the different sutras that tell you. So if you just memorize those sutras, you'll know this chart here, right? Or you can memorize the chart, right? So he calls it vela. Let's call it guttural, right? So we have ka, ka, ga, ga, na, and ha. These are all considered guttural letters. Palatal, e, ai, right? Yeah, you can watch the other videos. Okay, so ai, right? So ai and ol, I'm not exactly in accordance with him. Panini says something else about ai and ol, but anyway, he puts them there as palatal. ai, cha, cha, ja, ja, nya, ya, the semivowel ya, and the sibilant sha. So then the retroflex or the cerebral, ri, right? Ta, ta, dha, dha, na, ra, and the cerebral S, sha. The dental vocalic dental is ri, ta, ta, da, da, na, la, and sa. The labial produced on the lips, right? O, ow, pa, pa, ba, ba, ma, and va. Right. So this is the way we break them up. Right. Okay. So these are the vowels. Right. The first two columns here are the short and long vowels, primary vowels. Then we get the diphthongs. Diphthongs are always long. Right. Then the next column that we have here is the hard or unvoiced guttural, palatal, cerebral, dental, and labial, right? Then we have the aspirated version. This is called alpapran with less air. This is called mahapran with more air, this column. So the difference between this and this is simply more air, right? These two columns. Then we have another two columns. Then we have another two columns. The other two columns are these are soft or voiced consonants, right? So with using more vibration of the vocal cords, right? So this column, right, is the guttural, palatal, cerebral, dental, and labial voiced consonant, right? This is the unaspirated version, and this is the aspirated version with more air. We know if a syllable, in English, it's very easy to see what is aspirated and what is not aspirated, what has more air, what has less air. If you want to know the difference between Alpapran and Mahapran, try saying the letter. If you want to say the Alpapran, try saying it on an in breath, and try saying it on an out breath. If you want to make more aspirated. We tend to over aspirate in English, so a lot of times people in India hear us say the aspirated when we're actually meaning the unaspirated. So here's the difference between aspirated and aspirated and unaspirated. So when there's less air, it's g. When there's more air, it's g, g. So g and g, g and g. So try to put more air into the letter when you want it to be aspirated. So g, g, j, j, d, da, 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 ba, ba, like that. Try to put more air into it. Same thing with the hard sounds. Ka, ka, da, cha, cha, ja, ta, 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 pa, pa, like that. This column here, this column here is the nasals. Again, we went through the nasals just now. Na, nya, ra, na, ma. So we have the guttural, palatal, cerebral, dental, and labial nasals. Now we have the semivowels. They come in this point, right? So the semivowels, there's no guttural semivowel. There's only just the palatal, cerebral, dental, and labial semivowels, which come from these vowels, right? They're in between these vowels and consonants. Ya, ra, la, va, right? And then we have the aspirate, which is guttural, completely from the throat, breathing air out. Ha, 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 right? And then we have the three S's, the sibilants, right? Which are palatal, cerebral, and dental, right? Sh, sh, and s. Sh, 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 and sa. Okay, so that's how you pronounce and that's all the different parts of the mouth that they come from and throat. Right? Now, using the nasal passages, we can nasalize those things, and we can use what's called anunasika, which is nasalization, or we can pronounce a pure nasal like the anushwara. Okay, so the complex vowels are pronounced at 2 points of contact. The complex vowels. Now, what are the complex vowels? These diphthongs are complex vowels. Right, the sound E, right, is said to be composed of A and I, right? Right? And I. I is composed of long A and I. So the sound which is A, right, which is seen in English as an E, right, is composed of short A and I. The sound I in Sanskrit is made up of a long A and I, right? These are both velar and palatal. They're both guttural and palatal. So Panini Sutra is edaito kanta talu. Kanta talu. So they're also kanta and also talu. They're also guttural. They're also palatal. Right. The sound O, right, is made up of A and U, short A and U. The sound ow is made up of long A and U. Right? So they're both guttural, velar, and labial. Guttural and labial. Right? So they're produced on the lips and also in the throat. So like that. So audauto kantoshtam is what Pani says, kantoshtam. They're kanta or guttural, and they're also oshta, which is labial. Right. So the sound va is both dental and labial. Although he's put these things in these categories, he's explaining more here. So the letter va, this letter va here is not just labial, but it's also dental and labial. It's pronounced on the teeth and the lips, right? Va, va, va. If we say wa, when we say wa, we're just using our lips. Wa. If I say swami, swami, no teeth involved. If I say va, I'm using the top teeth with the lower lip. Va, 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 va. Right? Va. Say va. The top teeth and the lower lip. So the teeth and lip are both involved. So it's called, by Painini says this. He says it's dental and labial. It's a mixture of dental and labial. Va. So va, being mixture of dental labial, the sutra, I believe, is vakarasya dantostam. Vakarasya dantostam means va, kara, of vakara, the danta, the teeth, and the osta, the lips. Vakarasya dantostam. That's what Panini says. So that's explaining that. Okay, so now here's the entire alphabet. We have the vowels, swara, which are called swara, right? The simple vowels, which are called shuddha. Shuddha means pure, pure. So pure vowels. We can call them pure vowels. We can call them primary vowels. We can call them simple vowels. They are a, I, u, ri, ri. And there could be a long form also, apparently. According to some Pratishakyas, there is a long form. He hasn't mentioned a long form of ri because there is no Sanskrit word that you'll ever come across in the language that has a long ri. Okay? So he doesn't mention it here. And many people say, like even Dr. Tirunarayan told me, there's no long ri. I said to him, no, I've got Shastra that says that there is a long ri. It's theoretical and it's never used, but there is one. Okay, so in my opinion, according to the opinion of certain Puranas and Pratishakyas, there is a long ri, but we won't mention it because it never exists in the language. Okay, in actual fact. Then we have samyukta or complex vowels, right? Which are also called in English diphthongs. And they are A, I, O, ow. Now, the way he's put it here is you see how he's shown the short and long vowels in two columns. He's also showing short and long diphthongs. Now, in fact, the diphthongs are all the same length. They're all two matras. The short vowel is one matra, one clap, or one blink of the eye, right? One length long, and two matras, twice as long for the long vowels. So here, the complex or samyukta, which means complex or coming together, right? Two vowels coming together is samyukta. Yoga means to link, so yukta means we get the word yoke in English from yoga, put together, yoke, to put things together. So samyukta means putting things together. So putting things together complexly, right? We have A, I, O, ow, right? They're all the same length. But here, just to show that this one is made up of, the A is made up of short A and I, and the I is made up of long A and I, right? To show that, he's put them in the short and long columns. The O is made up of short A and U. The ow is made up of long A and U. So that's why he's shown them as short and long like this. They're not really short and long. They're all long. They're all 2 beats long. They're all like the long primary vowels or what do you call simple vowels. Okay, so now we have nasalization, anushwara, the anushwara, which can be pronounced like it's like the N in the French bon. So we can pronounce it with an A in front of it. We can also pronounce visarga with an A in front of it. We can pronounce this and aha. So again, all the vowels and the nasalization and aspiration, e, u, ri, a, I, o, ow, aha, right? That's the Sanskrit alphabet up to there. Now the consonants. The consonants, ka, ga, ga, na, cha, cha, ja, ja, nya, ta, ta, da, da, na, ta, ta, da, da, na, pa, pa, ba, ba, ma, ya, ra, la, va, sha, sha, sa, ha. That's it. And here are all the Sanskrit terms for them. Vyanjana means consonant, kantya means guttural, talavya means palatal, murdanya means cerebral, dantya means dental, oshna means labial, antasta means semivowel, ushman means sibilant, right? And he's included the H in the sibilants. But it can also be just by itself as called the aspirate. I don't have a word for that in Sanskrit. Okay, so that's the grammar. Now he's going to teach the 10 first consonants in Devanagari script. We're going to skip through this really quickly because we all know Devanagari script. If you don't know Devanagari script, we can learn it some other place. So we know that each symbol includes an inherent short A after it. So when we have consonants, right, unless we have a halanta or a virama, which is a little stroke that goes from left to right, top to bottom, at the bottom of the letter here, unless we have a little stroke here, then we have to pronounce an inherent A, short A. So this is ka, ga, na, right? Then we have cha, ja, ja, nya, right? So we can go on for the whole alphabet. He's just taught those 10. We know those already, so we're gonna go on. Now we're gonna learn some grammar. Okay. Now we're gonna learn plural. Now remember we have gum. We have the root sign of verb called gum. Gum means to go, right? It becomes gachati. He goes. Gachati, gachataha, gachanti. So far we learned gachati and gachataha. He goes, they too go. Now we're going to learn they all go, right? So, third person, gachanti. Gachanti, it's gacha plus a plus anti. They all go. The second person, that's in third person. Third person means he, she, or it. They too, or they all. So we're learning they all go, right? Second person. Second person is what? It's thou or you singular, you dual, or you both, and you plural, right? So, gachata. Gachata means you all go. You all go, or you many go, right? Gachata. It's gacha plus ta. First person, right? I, we two, or we both, we all, right? So we're learning we all now. We're learning plural. So gachamaha, gachamaha. It's gacha plus a plus mas. Now notice he's put mas here, but here it says gachamaha. That S is going to turn into a visarga. Okay, that's Sunday. Okay, so don't worry about that. Notice that the third person, gacha, minus a plus anti, right? It says here, gacha minus a plus anti, right? That's the way he is said to understand it. The root of the verb is gum. The stem of the verb, which we add the endings to, is gacha. But in this case, we add anti, but before we add anti, we have to take off one of these a's and just make it gutch and then add anti. Otherwise, if we have that a gacha here and we add anti, right? By Sunday it will become a long a, anti, and we don't want that. We only want gachanti. We don't want gachanti. Okay, so it's gachanti. So anyway, whichever way you want to think about it, it's just gach plus anti, or it's gacha minus the a plus anti. That's what he's saying. Okay, so now we have the complete conjugation or verbal paradigm. Paradigm means an example that we can follow, that we can use for all verbs, for all of these verbs. All of these verbs can be conjugated when we add endings to verbs. We're learning the whole present tense of the verbs. Now, the present indicative tense or present continuous tense. In English, we have present continuous and we have present tense. In English, we can say, I speak. I speak. That's present tense. I'm speaking. I am speaking is continuous present tense. So I can say I speak, or I can also say I am speaking. Both of those are present tense. One is called the present simple present tense, and one is called the present continuous tense. Okay? That's in English. In Sanskrit, they're the same thing. So you can translate vadami. Vadami means I speak or I am speaking. So vadami in Sanskrit can be translated as I speak or I am speaking. It can be either. Okay? In English, we have two slightly different present tenses like that. In Sanskrit, there's just one. There's just one. It's simple. It's simpler than English. Okay, and that is called lut. Lut, with a cerebral T on the end. It's called lut. All of these different tenses and moods of verbs in Sanskrit, they're called lakaras. They are lut, lit, lut, rin. There are different names for them that Panini gives them. So this one is called lut. So we're learning present tense. That's called lut. So here's the present tense. And this is exactly the way people learn it in India. They learn it third person first, then second person, then first person. Right? We learn it the other way around in English. We learn first person first because we think so much of ourselves. Our ahankara means that we think of I first. They think of other people first in India. So they learn the third person first, then the second person, then the first person. Okay, so then gachati, gachataha, gachanti. Gachasi, gachataha, gachata. Gachami, gachavaha, gachamaha. That's the full conjugation. So what does it mean? It means he goes, those two or they two go, they all go, or they many go. You go, you two go, you all go. I go, we all go. Singular, dual, and plural, third person, second person, first person, right? So now we know how to conjugate all Sanskrit verbs in the present tense. Good, huh? Okay, so that's not exactly true, what I just said, because there are some other exceptions and some other different things but we'll cover those later. Students of Sanskrit in India memorize these conjugations horizontally. Students in Europe and America tend to learn them vertically, right? They might say, gachati, gachasi, gachami. No, don't learn it like that. Learn it the Indian way. Gachati, gachataha, gachanti. Gachasi, gachataha, gachata. Gachami, gachavaha, gachamaha. That's how you should learn it. Right. It is better to follow the system of India and memorize horizontally for both verbs and nouns. Okay, so here are the standard endings. Third person, second person, first person, singular, dual, and plural. Ti, tas, anti, si, tas, ta, ni, bas, mas. These are the endings. Now you notice that some of the endings have S's on the end. Where the S's are shown, that's going to turn into a visarga up here. You see? Visarga, 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 visarga. Right? That's where we see S's at the end. That's why we said before that visarga represents S or R. Okay. Note that when a word is formed, the final S becomes visarga due to sandhi. This is called internal sandhi. When an ending is added to a word, it becomes a full word. When you get a stem, right? Here we've got a verbal stem and we're adding an ending to it. We're making a full word out of it, right? So when we make it, so internally within a word, that's called internal sandhi. Between words, between two different words in a sentence, that's called external sandhi. So these are rules for combining letters that sit next to each other, inside words and outside words. Okay. So grammatical terms. Verbs can be classified in four basic ways. Verbs, right? Action words, right? In English. Tense, mood, voice, person, and number. So we have the tense, just like we just learned this present tense. So we might have past tense, we have future tense, we have conditional, we have optative, we have interrogative, we have causative, there are some other moods and things. There's different things than tenses, but mostly when we understand tenses, we have past, present, and future tense, right? Okay, so voice means active or passive. Or in Sanskrit, we also have active, we also have middle endings, we have passive. Don't worry about that too much right now. Voice is going to be there. Person we have third person, second person, first person, just like in English, right? Number we have singular, dual, and plural. Right? In English, we don't really have dual. We use the word both for that, right? We both went, right? They both went, right? Like that. So we use an extra word. They don't need an extra word. They just use the dual. Okay, so singular, dual, and plural, and number, right? So we can, if we take any verb, any completed verb, we can classify it by tense, by voice, by person, and by number. This is similar to, but slightly different from how verbs are classified in English. Here's a simplified overview. Tense or mood. The tenses or moods, this should be moods, not modes. Moods are grouped together in 10 lakaras, which I just mentioned about that, or L sounds. Because of these are abbreviated by Panini with a word beginning with the letter L. We have learned the present indicative, which is abbreviated as lut. Right. So if Dr. Tirunarayan, if he says this is lut lakara, it means it's present tense. However, there are other tenses and moods, like the perfect mood, the perfect tense, right? We have such a thing as the perfect tense in English, right? Perfect is a type of past tense, right? Lit, it's called lit in Sanskrit. Then we have another tense called the periphrastic future, which is called lut. You don't have to remember this. It's a type of past. Perfect's a type of past. Periphrastic future is a type of future, right? There might be different types of past, okay? So so in Sanskrit, we might have one ending for a verb if we're saying that something happened, the thing happened today in the past, or we might have another ending that we put when something happened in the historical past, thousands of years ago, right? It's the same thing for the future. If it's going to happen today or if it's going to happen way in the future, who knows, you know? So we might use different tenses. The simple future, right? Subjunctive, don't get into that. So simple future is lit. Periphrastic future is lut. Lit is a subjunctive, which we probably won't touch on in basic Sanskrit, but it's another tense, okay? Or it can be called a mood. Imperative means, we want something to happen, right? So lot. The imperfect is also a type of past tense called lan, right? The optative or potential, which is called lin, right? So there's two types of lin in Sanskrit. There's what we call vidilin and ashilin. So lin is used, that tense is used to either give a blessing, ashilin, or to make a command, vidilin, a rule. Vidi means command, a rule. Or ashi means ashivada, a benediction, right? So when we make a benediction or when we're pronouncing a rule or making an order, we use vidilin or ashilin. Then the aorist, which is another type of tense called lun, and the conditional, where we're saying something might happen or could happen, right? Then we say lrin. Okay, so you don't have to remember all that stuff. This is just to explain to you what tenses and moods there are in Sanskrit. There are 10 of them, maybe 11 of them if you count Vedic Sanskrit. In Vedic Sanskrit, there's an extra one, right? But we don't have to worry about it right now. All we're worried about right now and all we've learned right now is the present tense, like that. And we may never have to use some of these other exotic tenses and moods, okay? So then we have upagraha. Upagraha means voice. We have learned about active voice, parasmaipada. Parasmaipada, there's different endings that we can add to a verb. And there are two endings called parasmaipada and manipada. Parasmaipada means a verb is an action. So if the action is for another person, it's called parasmaipada. If the action is for ourselves, it's called atmanepada. The atma is ourself. We are the atma, we are the soul, we are the body. The atma means soul and body. So atmanepada, if the action is on ourselves, then that is called atmanepada. In English, we call those active and middle. Active and middle. Not quite. Passive is another thing, and we'll get to that in a minute. Or maybe we won't get to it right now. So these are different endings. So we just learned gachati, gachataha, gachanti, gachasi, gachata, gacha, gachami, gachavaha, gachamaha, and that's present tense, right? That's present tense with active present tense. You know, he goes, they go, they two go, they all go, you go, you go, you, like that. I go, we all go. Simple, like that. So, but if I have another verb, there might be another verb called lab, to desire, love. So love in the present tense is not declined like this. It has different endings because that verb is considered an apanapada verb. It's a verb, right? If I desire, it's for me, right? Right? Apanapada, it has apanapada endings. I don't want to get too complicated in here. Okay, so in lesson 9, okay, which is a long way away, we will learn middle voice apanapada, which will take middle endings. And that will be labate, labete, labante, labase, labete, labadwe, labe, labawahe, labamahe. That's a different set of endings, slightly different, not completely different, because that verb just takes those. There's only 2 types of endings, right? So don't worry about it. So usually, when the fruit of the action comes back to the agent, right, the Atman, right? When the fruit of the action, the verb is showing the action in the sentence. It's the action word, right? When the fruit of that action comes back to the person, that is called apanapada. And that's when we use those apanapada endings, which we haven't learned and we won't learn until lesson 9, right? That's when we use those endings. When the fruit of the action goes to another person, para, right? Another person is para. So it's called parasmaipada for another, right? Is used. Although this distinction does not seem to be strictly followed in literature, right? So this was a distinction that used to be used. It's not specific now. Now all we have is we have 2 types of, if you look up a verb in a dictionary, Sanskrit dictionary, it's going to have a little a or a little u or a little p next to it. If it has the p next to it, we know how to conjugate it. We already learned parasmaipada endings. If it has an a next to it, we're going to learn it in lesson 9. And if it has a u next to it, it means we can do it either way. So that is called apanapada, parasmaipada, and ubhaipada. He's going to talk about ubhaipada down there in a minute. Okay, so when the fruit of the action goes to the other person, it's called parasmaipada, and that's what the endings are used, although this distinction has not been strictly followed in literature. Some roots, some verbs are conjugated in both voices. They're called ubhaipada, and you'll see a little u next to it in the dictionary to tell you that it can be done in either way. But mostly we don't have to know that, because when we see it written in a Sanskrit sentence, we'll see either this type of ending or that type of ending on it. So we'll automatically know. But sometimes we want to know, when we see the apanapada endings, whether it's a passive construction or an active construction, right? When they're using these middle endings, when we're using the middle endings, it could also be an active. It could be translated differently in English. So we have to know that, but we don't have to know it now. So, and some are only in one voice. So some are parasmaipada, some are apanapada, and some verbs are ubhaipada, means they go both ways. They can have both those endings. All the verbs we've learned so far are in the active voice, or what we call parasmaipada. So we don't have to worry about it. All of them are conjugated just like gum or gachati or gach, to go. Every single verb that we've learned so far is conjugated like this. So that's all we have to know for now. Okay, so now he's talked about tense, he's talked about voice, he's now going to talk about person, right? Third person, second person, first person. In Sanskrit, the third person is called pratama. We think of other people first, right? Remember it like that. We think of other people in Sanskrit first. We think of ourselves last. So third person is called pratama, second person is called madhyama, middle. Pratama usually means first, right? So madhyama, and then first person is called uttama, the ultimate. The ultimate is I, right? So third person is he, she, or it is third person. He, she, or it in dual and plural, it's they or those. In you singular, you plural, you dual, you plural, or you singular could be thou, right? In Old English is the madhyama person, the uttama person, or the first person, second person. The first person is I, or we, two, or we many, right? These are all the different persons. So a verb can be, if we split up a verb and we parse a verb, we say, tell me what kind of verb this is, or what this is. We have to figure out what tense it is. We have to figure out what voice it is. We have to figure out what person it is, and now we have to figure out what number it is. Right? So let's just see all those things. So we have to see, let's look, when we look at a verb, we look at a Sanskrit sentence and we see the verb. First of all, we have to recognize that it's a verb, right? And separate it from other types of words. So we see the verb, then we see what tense it is in, we see what voice it is in, then we see what person it's in, and then we see what number it's in, right? So the number is 3 numbers in Sanskrit: singular, dual, and plural. Eka, dvi, and bahu. Ekvachanam, dvivachanam, bahuvachanam. Okay, simple. So each verb may be classified according to these categories. For example, gachati. Okay, here's an example. I see the word gachati in a sentence. It is, first of all, what tense is it? It's present indicative. It's present tense. Gachati is present tense. It's also active because it's gachati. Gachati, that ending is an active ending, right? It's third person. It's third person in English, right? It's pratama purusha in Sanskrit. Remember, because others are considered first, right? Very polite language. Others are considered first. So third person, it's third person, he, she, or it, right? He goes, right? Then it's also singular. It's not they, it's he, right? So it's present indicative, active, third person singular of the verb to go is gachati, right? So if I say to a student, if I say, please parse the word gachati, then I am asking him to tell me what is gachati. What is gachati? Gachati is the root gum changed into the stem gach, adding the active ending of the active endings of the present tense, right? Third person singular to it becomes gachati. All right. Sounds complicated. It's really not that complicated. You know, just for complete understanding, he's going through these things. If your eyes are glossing over and you're thinking, oh my God, this is so complicated, don't worry about it, right? It's actually quite simple. You just learn a little paradigm. Gachati, gachataha, gachanti, gachasi, gachata, gachataha, gachami, gachawa, gachaha. Now I know many verbs. Now I know like practically all the verbs there are. I know how to conjugate them in the present tense. Easy. So using abbreviations called parsing codes, right? So what I ask for right now as a teacher, I'm asking a student, what is gachati? So I say to you, please parse the word gachati, the verb gachati, parse it. If I ask it to be parsed, I'm asking you to break it down and tell me what it is grammatically. So he says he uses different codes in his book, which are common codes that we should understand and we should know, right? We could identify gachati as pres, meaning present, right, with a dot, indic, in present indicative, active, that's the voice, right? Third person, right, meaning he, she, or it, right? Singular, right? Present indicative, active, third person, singular. This isn't as hard as it may seem, okay? Even he says that, right? Since all verbs so far are present indicative and active, right? So all we have to really know, if I ask you right now, I don't care for you to tell me whether it's present indicative or active. That we don't care because that's all we know right now. So if you just say it's third person singular, it's enough, right? Right? So if I say, anybody out there, let's see. If I say gachataha, parse gachataha. You don't have to tell me. I know it's present tense. I know it's active ending. What is gachataha in terms of person and number? Gachataha. Who can parse it? You want me to do the first one? Okay. It's
Good.
second person. It's second person, dual. It's second person, dual. That's the person and the number. Okay, another one. Gachamaha is what?
It will
What
be
person is it? What
third
person and what number?
No, it's first person because it's we. We all go. So it's first person, where you're speaking about yourself. Plural. First person plural.
First person plural in English, which is called Uttara. I'm not going to ask you to do it in Sanskrit. Otherwise, if you were in India, the teacher would say Gachamaha, and the student would have to say Uttama Purusha Bahuvachanam. If we're in a class with Tirunarayan and he says Gachamaha, I'll have to say Uttama Purusha Bahuvachanam. But because it's with me, you can say first person plural, and that's the way we should think. Forget about trying to do it in Sanskrit. Just do it in English is enough. Is hard enough, right? Okay, so what do we have here? Let's go through all these and just parse all of these. I will pass all of these. You just listen. Right? This is third person. We start off with the other people, right? We always start with the third person because we're polite, right? So gachati is third person singular, third person dual, third person plural, second person singular, second person dual, second person plural. Then we have first person singular, first person dual, first person plural, right? Easy, right? Third, 1, 2, 3. Second, 1, 2, 3. First, 1, 2, 3. That's it. That's easy, simple. Okay, so let's go on. Hope we all got that. All right, so that's how to parse. That's how we parse the verbs now, how we know. So here's some examples, right? He gives you examples. Gachami, I go, means I go. It's present indicative, active. They're all present indicative, active. So forget about that right now. This one is first person singular. Bhavanti is third person plural. Prachavaha is first person dual. Right? We both ask. First person dual. We both. First person is I, we, I. But it's dual, so we both. Right? Okay, so those are the examples. Now, accent. In accent, which we only have in Vedic Sanskrit, but which he covers very simply here, he says accent consists of higher and lower tones or swaras, right? So swara can not only mean a vowel, but it means also the tone of the vowel. We notice that swaras are only there on vowels. There is a raised tone, udata, an unraised tone, anudata, and a moving tone called swarita, right? Normally, this is the way that Panini puts it. He has three sutras, ucherudataha, nicheranudataha, samaha swaritaha, they're the Panini sutras for this section. Right. So now the thing is, right, in actual fact, it's the swarita which is high. Right? Moving from low to high is the swarita. When we see the vertical bar, that's the swarita, right? So in the Rig Samhita, in the Rig Veda Samhita, right, the udata is unmarked, right? A syllable or a vowel with no marking on it, no swara marking, no accent marking on it is udata. One with a horizontal line below it is called anudata. That's a low tone. So the regular tone, the main tone is the udata, and it's unmarked. Now this type of accentation is the same in the Taittiriya Krishna Yajurveda. Okay, so when he says in the Rig Samhita, in the Yajurveda Samhita also it's the same type of marking. Not necessarily in the Samveda, not necessarily in the Atharva Veda. Okay, not necessarily in some other branches of the Veda. Okay, so. But in the branches that we're interested in, this is the way it's done. So The udata is the unmarked. The anudata, the low tone, is a horizontal bar underneath, and the swarita is a vertical high bar. For example, here's the Sanskrit text. This is the first line of the Rig Veda. Agni ile purohitam yagyasya deva mrityujam. It actually should be a dirgha swarita here. It should be mrityujam. Okay. So anyway, we have on the first A, and this is this is an older, a Calcutta style A, right? So you might not see this type of A in Sanskrit much. You know, we're used to the A that sort of looks like a 3, right? But this is another type of A. This is also a Vedic L here on the end of Mile, and it can be pronounced differently. It's actually a letter which comes because we have this cerebral d changes to this L by some means in Vedic Sanskrit. Don't worry about it too much. Okay, so we have an anudata here, a low tone to start off with on A. Then gni is the next syllable, which has no swara markings, so it's udata. The third one is a swarita, right? Mi, it's a high tone, right? And then again, le is an udata, right? I'm just telling you the accents of each syllable. The next syllable in the next word, the first syllable is an anudata, right? Now, what you can do is you can, with a harmonium, you can make these 3 low, medium, high, and extra, and extra high, whatever for the Diga Sweep or whatever it is, sounds on a harmonium, and you can go through and you can play these notes as you chant a Vedic mantra, and that can help you in case you're tone deaf or you're unable to catch the pitch or know the swara properly. Okay, so in classical Sanskrit texts, accents are not marked. Okay, so this is only for Vedic Sanskrit, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, in most dictionaries, a mark is placed over the udata for Vedic words only. So if you look in a dictionary like Monty Williams Dictionary, you will see this acute accent. You see down here, there's acute accent. So far, we've only seen an acute accent, which is that line above a letter that goes from left to right, horizontal, at a 45-degree angle up. Like that's called an acute accent, right? We've only ever seen that on an S to mean sh, the powerful S. Here, what he's saying is, if you see that over a vowel in a dictionary, it means that it's a Vedic word. It's a Vedic word, and it has this udata. Now, remember, udatas are not shown and are not marked in Rig Veda or Taittiriya Krishna Yajurveda. So there will be no. If you wrote Manu in Devanagari, you wouldn't put any marking on it because the udata is not marked. Okay. So anyway, somehow or other, he's just giving us this rule. If you see this in a dictionary, printed in a dictionary, just disregard it. Just forget about it. Doesn't mean anything. Don't worry about it. It's too complicated. Don't worry about it at all. Right. So Panini does not give rules for stress accent. Okay. So like in English and some other languages, we stress certain syllables. So don't bother doing that in Sanskrit. The stress should only be long and short. Whenever there's a long vowel, we give more stress or more emphasis to that syllable in a word. There's no such thing as stress. Some languages have certain stresses on certain syllables, and we should try to avoid that in Sanskrit and just go with the long and short. For now, the important rule of proper pronunciation is to maintain a clear distinction between long and short and long vowels, as discussed in pages 2 and 3. Okay, so now we got some vocabulary. Let's learn some new vocabulary. That was the hard part. That was pulling the teeth. That was the grammar. Okay, so sorry about that, but we have to go over that. There's very basic concepts in grammar that everybody has to understand. We didn't learn that much Sanskrit, but we learned about grammar. Right, okay. So now we have Sanskrit and English, we have some vocabulary. So here we have a word. This is an indeclinable. It's na. Na means not. By the way, ma also means not. Ma or na, they mean not. They're placed before the verb. So now let me say to you, gachami means I go, right? So if I say na gachami, what does it mean? Na gachami.
I do not go.
Yeah, I don't go. I don't go. I don't go. If I say vadami, it means I speak. If I say na vadami, it means I do not speak. Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's how we use na. Na or ma comes right before the vowel, the verb, right before the verb. Now we have some more verbs because we know verbs. So let's learn some more verbs. So we have the root sign and vad, the root sign and star. Vad means, vad is given with the third person singular, vadati. He says or he speaks. Star, the root, is given with the stem, tishtati. Star. So vad, it's easy to see how vad becomes vadati. It's a little more difficult to see how star becomes tishtati, right? So now forget about vad and star. Forget about the roots. Just think about the third person, and that will tell you how to do it. So I'm going to give you an example of vadati. I'm going to conjugate vadati because we know how to conjugate in the present tense active, right? We know how to do that already. So vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadata, vadata, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, right? That's how we conjugate vadati. Now, let's go back and I'm going to show you again gachati. Right? See here? Here's gachati on the screen, right? This is our paradigm. This is our example word. Our example verb is gachati, gachataha, gachanti, gachasi, gachataha, gachata, gachami, gachavaha, gachamaha, right? So now we just learned vad. And we also learned tishtati, right? So now somebody, please conjugate, right? Fully, right? The verb to stand, tishtati.
Okay. Tishtati, tishtataha, tishtanti, tishtasi, tishtataha, tishtatha, tishtami, tishtavaha, or is it tishtavaha, and tishchamaha.
Tishtamaha, yes, exactly. And so vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, right, like that. Tishtati, tishtataha, tishtanti, tishtasi, tishtataha, tishtata, tishtami, tishtavaha, tishtamaha. Right? Vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadamaha, vadamaha. Like that. So what else? What other verbs do we know? Do we know any other verbs?
Prichati.
Pritch. Do we know? Pritch, to ask. To ask. Okay. So hang on. Let's get it in front of us and see. Okay. So pritch. Go ahead. Pritch.
Prichati, prichataha, prichanti, prichasi, prichataha, prichatha, prichami, prichavaha, prichamaha.
Right. So from infant reader, we had some other ones. We had spurati, to throb, right? We had mlayati, to fade. We had palati, to bear fruit. So palati, palataha, palanti, palasi, palataha, palata, palatam, palami, palatami, palatawaha, palatamaha, right? So then we have spurati, spurataha, spuranti, spurasi, spurataha, spurata, spurami, spuravaha, spuramaha, right? Mlayati, mlayataha, mlayanti, mlayasi, mlayataha, mlayata, mlayami, mlayawaha, mlayamaha. Got it? So
yep.
All of these we already know. So all we have to do is learn. Forget about learning the roots because the roots sometimes are different from the stem, which we add the endings to. In the case of star, so down here we had star.
The stem is more important because the stem will take form.
The stem is so much more important. Stem is so much more important. That's why whenever you see he gives in the vocabulary, he's going to give it. And same thing in Infrareader. They always give the third person singular active present tense. They always give that whenever they give you a verb, right? So that you know how to use it. I'll give you an extreme example of how you will never figure out how to conjugate a word, right? You know the word, you know how we have darshan. Darshan means to see. The deity sees us, we see the deity, right? Darshan. Mm-hmm. So drish, right? Drish. Okay. Drish is the root. Drish is the root. It means to see. Drish is the root. How do we conjugate drish in the present tense active, right? I will do it for you. Pashyati, pashyataha, pashanti, pashyasi, pashyata, pashyata, pashami, pashavaha, pashamaha. Pash. Okay. Drish becomes pash. The root is drish. The root is drish. The stem is pash. So
then you say pashyati, and then you know immediately that you just go pash. Okay.
Exactly. So if I say to you conjugate drish, you have no idea how to do it. But if I say to you conjugate pash, then you know. So I'm never going to tell you the root. I'm always going to tell you the stem, because sometimes, but it's rare. It's very rare that the stem is different. Like this one with star is a little different. Okay, there's rules for why it's like this, but we don't need to go into that detail. We just need to know the stem, because we know the endings. Now we just need to know the stem, and we just add the endings. Easy. Okay, so all vocabulary is given in the order of the Sanskrit alphabet. So note that when he gives vocabulary in every lesson, he's very, very methodical about it. He gives it in the order that you'll see it in a dictionary, right? This na will come before va, right? Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, in Sanskrit alphabetical order, what is this? This is na, right? Na is what? It's a dental nasal, right? We have na. It's a dental nasal. And it comes before va, because va is what? Va is a semivowel. Ya, ra, la, va. Right? Right? It's a semivowel. So then it comes before the S's. The semivowel comes before the S's, right? Sha, sha, sa. This is sa. So he's given it in Sanskrit alphabetical order. In addition, an additional rule you'll need to know to do these exercises is that a member in a series has more than one word. That if a member in a series has more than one word, such as nagachati, cha usually comes after the first word. For example, he's giving you an example of this. Gachami, na, cha, gachati. Right? Here it means, gachami means I go. Right? And cha gachati. But the cha comes in between the na and the gachati. Right? So I go, I do not, she does not go. So I go, he or she, it could be he or it, right? Right? I go and she does not go. That's what it means. And that's the order it'll be in. So here we would expect up to now that if there's a series of things going on, right, we would expect up to now to put the na before the gachati. We would expect to say gachami, cha, na gachati, right? That may also be correct, but he's saying it's better to put the cha, somehow or other the cha goes here. I don't know why. Okay. Anyway, that's his thing. Okay. You may also see cha at the end of a clause. Okay. So who knows what a clause is?
No.
Okay. I'll tell you. A clause is a series of words in a sentence that all hang together. Yeah. And there are different types of clauses, but they'll usually be sectioned off from other parts of the sentence if it's a complex sentence by commas. Right? So, for instance, I'll give you an example. I the person who I'm teaching class, speak to the students. So I can say, I speak to the students. That other portion in the beginning is roped off by commas. I, comma, the person who is giving class, comma, speak to the students. So that is a clause. That's a clause. Speak to the student, the person who speaks to the students. That's a clause which stands by itself. So it's a part of a sentence which stands by itself is a clause. Okay. So for example, you may see at the end, and I would say you won't see this so much, but you're going to see the second one much more. Gachami na gachati cha. That's the way you're probably going to see it, much more than the first one. Okay. So gachami this is another way of saying the same thing. Up here he says gachami na cha gachati, but down below he says gachami na gachati cha. So I go, he, she, or it doesn't go, right? And that's the more common way, right? So you may see cha at the end of the clause, and he says less often. I'm going to contradict him here, and I'm going to say you're probably going to see it at the end more often than not, okay? All right, so that's his opinion, and he's probably right, and I'm probably wrong, but I have seen this sort of way of doing it much more than this. And don't worry about this. This is a very minor point. Wherever don't worry too much about Sanskrit word order.
Would it be wrong to say gachami not cha gachati cha? Because just like how we used to say, you usually could use cha twice also. Do you ever see it like that? Gachami not cha gachati cha.
That's also might be possible. Yeah, that also might be possible. Don't worry too much about it. In Latin, they use this word que like they use cha in Senatus Populus que Romanus. So it's the same. Que and cha are the same thing in Latin and Sanskrit. So it's just thrown in there. It's a word that is a conjunction. It puts two things together. So we have these two sentences that stand by themselves. I go. So we can make it two sentences. I go, period. He, she, or it does not go. Na gachati, period. Right? Full stop. So it can be two sentences. So therefore, conjoining them, putting them together, we just use what's called a conjunction. The conjunction is and or cha. So wherever you put the cha, don't worry about it too much. Okay, it's not going to make a big difference in the translations we're going to be making. It's not going to make a big difference, believe me. Yeah, and if you have a doubt, then you have a doubt. Okay, no problem. Okay, so now the exercises are: learn the pronunciation and order of the semivowel, sibilance, anuswar, and visarga. Learn the 10 consonants in Devanagari. That we already know. We already know that stuff. Write in correct order the entire alphabet in transliteration and Roman script. Right. So right. So conjugate each verb that we've learned and learn the 9 endings. We just went through some steps where we did that. Be able to give the parsing code for each form that we learned. Yes, we've done that. Okay. So now he's going to give some exercises here. Right. Translate the following sentences into English. Use a summary sheet on page 30. Underneath each sentence is a sentence with sandhi. Right. So he's going to give the sentence without sandhi and the sentence with sandhi. In some cases, they're the same. Right. Because there is no sandhi. Right. So so don't be like in the first one here. Vadati na cha vadami. Right. It's the same thing with sandhi. So underneath it's with sandhi. Above it's without sandhi. Right? Okay. So the first one, and the answers are on page 245, but we don't need the answers right now, so we can probably just do it like this, right? Okay. So this is your homework, but in case you want to go through it a little bit now, we can. Okay. So vadati na cha vadami. So vad
he speaks and I don't speak.
He speaks and I don't speak. Right. Okay. So the next one is vadataha smarataha cha.
Varataha is meaning that's dual. I think it's you both speak, and you both
No.
So, and he
No. They too. They too.
Remember.
They too.
Okay. And
yeah,
they remember.
You two speak. They too remember. Right?
Yeah.
That the difference is here. This is a th, and this is a t.
Yeah.
This is ta, and this is ta. So vadati, vadataha, with a t, right? Vadanti. Vadasi, vadataha is dual, right? Is dual. So parsing this, right? It's the verb to speak, right? And this one is second person dual. This one is third person dual.
Uttama Purusha.
No, third person is
Pratama Purusha. Pratama Purusha.
Yeah. Other people first, right?
Pratama Purusha Dvivachana.
Yeah. And what did I say about that? First time you try to answer like that, you get it wrong. So forget about the Sanskrit terminology. I'm telling it to you, but you don't need to know it. Let's try to think English terminology. That's the best way to learn. So this one is parsed as second person dual. This one is parsed as third person dual. Right. Okay. So here's the next one. I say nagachanti. So gachanti is what? It's third person plural. Third person plural.
They
third
don't
person
go.
plural. Nagachanti. Nagachanti means?
They don't go.
They do not go. Correct. Okay. Now, tishtati, right? Tishtati, tishtataha, tishtanti, tishtasi, tishtata, tishtata, tishtami, tishtavaha, tishtamaha. What's tishtamaha?
So that's first person plural, which means we all stand.
We all stand. Gachamaha.
And
gachati, gachataha, gachanti, gachasi, gachata,
and we all go. We all stand and we all go.
Yeah, we all stand and we all go. Right? That's also third person plural. Right? Now, have a look. This is the first one where he's showing you Sunday. You see how this visarga, AH, before the G turns into O. We haven't learned that rule yet, but we will learn it, okay? And this is gachamas. The visarga turns into a palatal S before the C. Because C is a palatal letter, the visarga turns into a palatal S. So it's tishtamo, gachamascha. Yeah? Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're going to see this one in a book. And you're going to have to, first of all, turn it into this before you translate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Got it. Okay. So then we have bhavataha, vasataha. Bhavataha cha, vasataha cha.
Bhavataha means you.
Who is to be? Who is to be?
You both are. You both are. You both are, and you both.
Vasati is to dwell, is to live or dwell.
You both are, and you both dwell.
Yeah. You are. You two are. You both are, and you both live. Yeah. It sounds a little corny, but that's what it is. And you see here the visarga before the C. This is very, very. You know how we have in Vishnu Sahasranam, we have this ascha. You see it so often. The palatal S before the C, right? And even in Devanagari, we see those two letters come together in a conjunct consonant. We don't see the cha as separate, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right? Okay. Now we have kutra bhavasi. Now what's bhavasi?
Where do you both live? No, where are you both?
No. First thing is parse the verb and tell me what person and what number it is.
It's dual.
Yes.
Second person.
Okay. Bhavati, bhavataha, bhavanti. Bhavasi, bhavata, bhavata. Bhavami, bhavawaha, bhavamaha. Bhavasi is what?
It's the second person.
Second person.
Oh God, singular.
Singular. Second person, singular. It's singular. Bhavati, bhavataha, bhavanti. Bhavasi, bhavataha, bhavata. Bhavami, bhavawaha, bhavamaha. It is bhavasi. It is singular. So that is why it's important to parse it first before attempting to translate it. Parse it. Bhavasi. It is singular. It is second person singular, which is thou or you singular. So kutra means where. Be.
Where are you?
Where are you? Singular person I'm looking for. I'm looking for a singular person. So I would go out in the forest and say, Kutra Bhavasi. Govindachari, where are you? Kutra Bhavasi. Kutra Bhavasi. If I'm looking for two of you, right? What would I say?
Kutra Bhavataha.
Bhavataha. Yes, Bhavataha. And if I'm looking for a lot of people?
Kutra Bhavat.
Bhavat.
If you're looking for a lot of people, it will be Bhavamaha. Kutra Bhavamaha.
No. It's all second person.
Okay.
I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you too. I'm looking for you many. You many.
Bhavata.
What's you? Bhavata. Bhavata without the visarga. Bhavata without the visarga. Yes. Putra bhavata. Putra bhavata. Putra bhavata. I'm looking for a lot of people. Okay, good. So now tishtati gachati. Now what's tishtati? Tishtanti. Tishtanti ganchanti cha. Excuse me. I misspoke.
Means again it's plural.
What?
So plural.
It's plural. Whoa. What person is it though? It's plural.
It's third person. Third
person plural. Yeah, which means in English, third person means they all.
They all stand.
They all stand.
And they all go. Gachanticha.
Right. So we could translate it like this as they all stand and they all go. Or we could simply say in English, they all stand and go. Right? They all stand and go. That will be another way of saying it, right? Okay. So now H. Okay, so nacha prichati, nacha vadati.
So this is third person, singular, which means he or she.
He, she, or it.
Asks.
Yep.
So that means he or she or it doesn't
asks, or do they ask or not? Doesn't ask. Yeah.
Nacha prichati, nacha vadati means and does not speak. And does not speak.
Right.
He or it does not speak.
So she doesn't ask and she doesn't speak. She doesn't ask and she doesn't speak. Or he doesn't ask and she doesn't speak. Right? Or she or right?
It doesn't ask and it doesn't speak.
She doesn't, he doesn't ask, she doesn't speak, she doesn't ask, he doesn't speak, whatever. Right. Okay. Right. Or it doesn't ask and it doesn't speak. Like that. Good. Okay. You think we could do it in Sanskrit? Do we think we can translate into
we'll see. Kutra. Very good.
Kutra.
And they
meaning they, we're going to take plural, they here to mean not they both, but they plural. Okay, they go. Going is what? Gutch, right?
Gutch.
What is they? What is they go? What is they go? Tell me what is they go? Third person plural. Huh?
Gachanti.
So what's the what's the full sentence? Putra gachanti. Yeah, where are they going? Very good. Okay, we do not speak. So we speak. How do we say we speak? We speak plural.
Yeah, when we're saying we is
first person. First person, plural. Speak.
So that would be
is what?
It will be for speak will be vadamaha.
Vadamaha, yeah.
Na vadamaha.
Na vadamaha. Okay, see. He asks and they speak. Okay, so First of all, he asks. Prich.
That's third person. He is third person.
Singular. Third person singular.
So ask will be prichati.
Prichati.
Cha. Prichati, cha. And they speak would be, so it will be plural. Third person plural. Which will
Vad.
Yeah, vad. So it will be vadanti. So
Vadanti.
cha. So prichati cha, vadanti cha.
Or it could just be prichati vadanti cha with only one cha.
Yeah.
Could be only one cha, right? Or it could be cha after each thing. No problem. Okay, so where are we standing?
So kutran, we is first person, and it's we, so it's plural. So standing. Tishtamaha, kutra tishtamaha.
Kutra tishtamaha, yeah. Okay, so then we have we. Where do those two live? Those two.
So it's dual, obviously.
First of all, what's live? What's the words for live? Vas.
Yeah, so it will be
vasati, vasitaha, vasanti.
Okay, so it'll be vasati. So those two. Okay, first of all.
Okay, so what is those two live? What is those two live?
Yeah, no, that's what.
What is it? Vas, vasati, vasitaha, vasanti.
Hang on.
Okay,
So
vasati.
Plural, right?
He lives. Vasitaha. Those two live. Vasata. Those plural live. They plural live. They two.
Okay,
he says
so
those. He
so
says those two. So think they two. They two.
Vasataha.
Vasataha. Yeah.
Kutra vasataha.
Vasataha. Kutra vasataha. Okay. We are not going. Gutch. We go
so
is
again,
what?
It's again first person plural. So to be na gachamaha.
Nagachamaha. I ask and they remember.
I ask will be prichami cha.
Prichami.
And then it'll be plural, and remember it'll be smar.
Smara.
So it will be they, so it will be plural. So smaramaha. Okay.
Try again.
Hang on.
Smarati, smarataha, smaranti. They plural.
Yes.
Smaranti. Prichami.
Prichami
Prichami smaranti cha.
Smaranti cha. Oh Lord, help
Right.
me.
Where are we?
Putra.
We're in the middle of Sanskrit class. That's where we are. Okay, where are we? Well, it's the verb to be.
So
bhavati.
Yeah, bhavati, and we will be first person plural.
First person plural.
So bhavamaha, kutra bhavamaha.
Putra bhavamaha. Where are we? We're at the end. Okay, summary sheet. Here's a summary sheet. Here's a summary sheet on page 30, which you can go over by yourself. It gives all of the verbs that we know. It gives all the indeclinables that we know. If you print out this sheet, you can then make all the sentences you like out of all the things that you know.